Words have the power of life and the power of death. Out of our mouths proceed blessings as well as cursings. I grew up listening to the words of discouragement. Growing up, I was told many things, many ugly things that shaped my attitude. Being told I was a loser, being told I was pathetic, worthless, and other worse things that I don't care to repeat here. But I had a talent that kept me from falling into the abyss. I was an artist, and I did drawings from the time I was a little kid. In my room, alone at night, I would draw throughout the whole night. I was always fascinated by what I was able to draw. After I would draw something, I'd sit and stare at it, and I just couldn't believe I had created it. I was in awe of it, and I loved being able to create artwork and just make things from nothing. It was that ability that always kept me from the edge of darkness. It kept me from giving up on life. It truly saved my life. Because all around me was conflict and negativity, spiraling out of control. Making artwork was the only thing I felt I had control of, I suppose. But more importantly than that was that it gave me peace. Being able to make something like artwork brought a peace in my heart when it felt like there was nothing but chaos around me. The words I heard and how crappy my life felt at the time unfortunately took a toll on me. I didn't know any better, and I began to believe in what I was being told about myself, to the point where I nearly gave up on pursuing my passions. I was terrible in relationships. Whether romantic or not, whether friends or girlfriends, I always felt like an outcast. And in some part, that's what I was. Because I spent so much of my time alone, doing my own thing, that I never fully felt like I fit in to what the rest of my friends were interested in. While everyone was living for the weekend to get drunk and party, I had my head in the clouds, thinking abstract thoughts, wondering about the nature of life in general, or daydreaming of what it would be like to make a movie or to do computer animation, that sort of thing. But unfortunately, I didn't pursue those things. Instead, I never really truly believed in myself that I could be anything than a pathetic loser. This is how I felt about myself because I was told that this was what I was. I believed it to the point where I let a lot of things go. I let a lot of opportunities vanish because I didn't have the courage to go after them. I never felt I deserved anything good. Now that I am older and I reflect on that time, I can't believe I was foolish enough to accept those things. If I had only known back then what I know now, I would have ignored it and did what I needed to do for myself. I used to draw pictures, spending hours finishing some piece of artwork, only to give it away to someone who never paid me for it. Or if I did get paid, it was not nearly as much as it was worth. Some people would ask me to dedicate a lot of time to work on something they wanted, and they expected me to do it for free. Why? Because they just thought, well, he likes to draw, so he'll have no problem doing it for no charge. And of course, like a fool, I'd just do it. Because I didn't assign any value to what I did, so I didn't feel I deserved much. Like a beggar who was happy with scraps, I was grateful that anyone would take interest at all in anything that I did. Pathetic, wasn't it? Pathetic. They say hindsight is 20/20. Only when we look back at our choices are we able to see the error of our thinking. But we can't change the past, can we? There is one thing about me that not many people know, is that I cannot stand a bully. A bully is someone who goes out of their way to belittle and degrade another human being in order, most of the time, to manipulate the victim and elevate their own status. I know firsthand about how bullies operate. It doesn't even have to be a person who physically beats up on someone. Sometimes the worst abuse is verbal and mental abuse. There are many types of people that are abusive to others in various ways. Sometimes just using hateful, destructive words can be enough to crush another man's spirit. And although we may not take too much stock in words, we sometimes forget the power of what a few words can do. They can lift someone up when they're feeling down, and they can bring someone crashing to the ground. Words are more powerful than we realize. If we don't believe that, then I say, look at what Adolf Hitler was able to accomplish by the power of his rhetoric. He inspired armies of men to commit such evil acts that his name alone evokes fear, hatred, and disgust. Words can illustrate such masterful works of art that inspire generations of people to hope and dream and aspire to something great, even long after the person who spoke them has become all but bones and dust. But words also have the power to destroy. They can inspire people to hatred, to commit murder, or to cause devastation. Words can kill. Imagine someone who speaks such evil things to someone who is already broken in spirit. Someone who has no hope inside, no fire, no light inside, or they are barely holding on to whatever light they have. How easily an evil word can extinguish that light, even causing someone to take their own life. Just a few words can evoke such an emotional response, unlocking the floodgates to an ocean of hidden memories. You might say it sounds a little overly dramatic to say that there is some kind of power in words. After all, it's just a few words. And I know that each of us is responsible for our own actions. We should not shift the blame to someone else, when after all that we needed to do is ignore someone who speaks evil of you. That is true. We are responsible for what we do in our lives. We are responsible for how we respond to others when they mistreat us. Never do I say we use others as an excuse for how we end up living our lives. That is why we must always be aware of these things. We must acknowledge when someone is trying to degrade you and to call it out for what it is. To simply ignore it is not enough. Too long do people stand by while evil is being committed and do nothing to stop it. When we allow evil actions to persist, we ourselves participate in that very evil. I look around now and I see people treat each other with so much disrespect. And the first urge we have is to fight fire with fire, to take vengeance and pay back those who have attacked you, those who have perpetrated evil against their fellow man or woman. That, a lot of times, is how we've been conditioned to respond. You did this and this to me, so I have every right to do this and that to you. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, right? Vigilante justice, taking matters into your own hands. But really, does that make things better in the long run? I mean, what good does that really do, besides feed your own ego? It might satisfy that urge for vengeance, but it ends up being hollow and meaningless, and it can never undo what has already been done. We come to somewhat of a conflict of interest, a moral dilemma. By allowing someone to hurt you or take something from you and not paying them back for what they've done, they might consider that to be a sign of weakness and use that to further exploit you. So if someone does something wrong to you, the first response is to get them back. Because they have done the wrong, now it is justified in your eyes to do to them what they have done to you. Right? I mean, it's only fair, isn't it? So now we have become judge, jury, and executioner. Although one problem I see in that method, we are flawed human beings, and as flawed human beings, we do not always use our best judgment. We cannot rightly judge what is considered fair, because oftentimes and not, we are not led by objective and balanced reasoning, we are led by our emotions, rather than our minds. We are not always capable of seeing both sides of the story, because we are led by our emotions. So forgiving someone is considered to be weakness in the eyes of some. So being strict in handing out punishment is considered to be strength. But forgiving someone their debt is considered weakness. Because my pride will not allow someone to do me wrong, I must prove my strength, my dominance, my authority, by taking revenge on that very person until I have returned all that I am owed, even if that means I must take away all that they own. Unfortunately, that way of dealing with things is rampant these days. Oh, you bumped into me on the street, or you offended me in some way? Well, I'll just shoot you down like a dog in the street, leave you for dead, because I am judge, jury, and executioner. I make the rules around here, and you must abide by them or else. I say what goes around here. As if you have any power whatsoever. So here we have many people roaming the streets in some of the seediest neighborhoods with this chip on their shoulder, thinking the world owes them, and if someone crosses them, well, they must demonstrate their strength by taking them out. And why is that? Because we live in the wild, and it's the law of the jungle sort of mentality, where brute force wins the crown? We use weapons to punish those we feel deserve to be punished. Well, words are weapons too. Just as we use a gun to change the course of another person's fate, we are capable of using words to alter that person's fate. Even more so, to alter that person's reality and mindset. To bend that person to your will. Words can build someone up and they can break someone down. Words have the power of life and death. If the words you speak are evil, they begin somewhere in your mind. If words are evil, how evil is the mind that creates them? If you speak hateful words, they come from a heart of hate. Where did this hatred come from, I wonder? We must ask ourselves, do we speak to others the way we want to be spoken to? Do we treat others the way we hope others would treat us? I can't help but think of what it might have been like if I had more confidence in myself when I was young. If I had believed in myself to pursue those dreams early on in life, had I only known. At that time, I didn't know better than to accept what was said of me, instead of rejecting it like I should have done. But I didn't understand then, and I wasted so much time thinking that I can't, that I never will, that I won't. It's not worth it. It'll never happen. It's pathetic, stupid, weak, worthless. No one should ever accept that. I learned that late in life, and I'm still learning to deprogram my mind from this hateful rhetoric. To not return the favor by repeating the same words that had poisoned my mind to others. Instead, I choose to turn it around and to try my best to be as kind as I can to other people, even if sometimes it feels like they don't deserve it. Because in the end, it is not for me to judge. But if I were to return evil for evil, I would fall into that same trap that was set for me in the very beginning. If someone mistreats you and you choose not to retaliate, but to be kind in return, you begin to break that cycle of destruction. And if that person who attacks you does not have remorse and continues, they bring judgment upon themselves. It takes more strength to counter words of destruction with kindness than it does to pay them back. It is not easy by any means. But as you do so, your conscience is clear, while the other person is riddled with uneasiness, never satisfied. Because that cycle of hate will keep moving and moving. They will eventually seek out other people to destroy if they can't get anywhere with you. There is a saying that goes something like this: to not forgive is like drinking a vial of deadly poison and waiting for the other person to die. For anyone who has ears, let them hear. We are not what other people say that we are, no matter how much they have convinced us that we are. Because ultimately, we are the masters of our own fate. We make the choices to accept it or resist it. No one has any right whatsoever to determine your worth. They simply do not have the authority to do so, plain and simple. Bullies love to assert their authority over others, but what authority do they possess that has not been given to them? And how easy is it to remove that control? Surprisingly easy. Easier than one would imagine possible. It all begins with a single solitary word: no.